Today I'm going to try to solve a problem that have been stuck with me for quite some time in my studying years. And that is, whenever I'm studying, I tend to use a technique called the Pomodoro technique. And if you're not familiar with the Pomodoro technique, it is a technique you use to divide your time into two parts. One part is your study session and another part is your relax session. And the study session is typically 25 minutes, can be more if you're more experienced, and your break time is typically around 5 minutes. While that might sound great, there's just one little problem with the Pomodoro technique, and that is nothing to do with the technique itself. It's just whenever I'm trying to put up a timer on either my phone or in the web browser, within a short duration of time, I somehow end up scrolling on Instagram or YouTube, and that's really not the ideal use of a Pomodoro technique. And my idea is, how can I make a product that can actually clearly show how much time is left of your current session, but also help me improve my electronics skills and also my 3D printing skills. So to make this product, I have to come up with some kind of idea of how it should look like. And this might be because I recently watched Star Wars, but I thought, how cool could it be if you actually had a lightsaber that lit up in one color when you are focusing, and then lit up in a different color when you have your relax time. And I kind of liked that idea. So I started figuring out what features I would like to include in this product, and I have generally two main features. The first feature is this editing of color. I would like to have the option to actually change the color, and instead of just having red for when you're studying and let's say blue for when you're relaxing, I would like to have the possibility to iterate or choose between multiple different colors for both focusing and for your relaxation. The second feature is I want to be able to edit what the duration of the focus and the relax timer actually is. So to do that, I would probably need some kind of display to show what is the timer. And yeah, those are the main two features for the product. And with these figured out, the next step is to actually determine what are the components that we need to make this product. So for this product, there are four main components, and the most important component is actually the brain to control it all. For this project, I have chosen to go with an ESP32, and this is a small microcontroller. And while it might be a bit overkill to just use it for controlling lights and a small display, it actually also comes with Wi-Fi and a Bluetooth module. And while it might not be necessary for this project in particular, I thought it could be interesting to look into in the future. The second component is the LED strip itself, because without an LED strip, you don't really have that much of a lightsaber. So for this project, I have bought an individual addressable LED strip. It's called BTF Lighting WS2812B. This means that you can go through each individual LED and actually choose a different color for each of them. And while it might not be necessary, I have an idea to why I actually like an individual addressable LED strip for this project. The third component is a small OLED display. I bought this 128 by 64 pixels OLED display, and it's just a very cheap one with black and white coloring, so binary coloring, you could say. This I'll be using to have some kind of navigation and maybe also show the timer. And finally, the fourth component or components are the buttons to actually edit the color and timer and maybe navigate through the navigation menus. And I was trying to figure out how many buttons I actually needed to make a product like this. And first I thought maybe 2 are enough, but it was a bit too awkward to adjust the timer and also the color. So I ended up choosing 3 different buttons, one for select and one for increasing or decreasing. So yeah, these are the 4 components that I've been using in the product. And before going into the actual programming of the microcontroller, I would like to show you how I have actually connected the different components to the ESP. So let's get into that. Alright, so this is just an overview of how the components are actually connected to the ESP32. And I use a web page called Walkwe, and it can be used for simulation if you don't have the components or if you just want to make some simulation tests. But I just use it to kind of show you how the components are connected. I could not find a direct component called BTF lighting for this LED strip, but instead I just found a component that had 3 connections as well. But I can just show you, it really, I don't know if you can see this, I guess you can. It has 3 connections, it has a ground, it has a VCC for the power, and then it has a data pin. So I have just taken this component and connected this to the 5 volt, connected the ground to the ground, and then our data pin to pin number 2, as I did for the actual ESP32. For the small OLED display here, we have 4 connections. One is for the ground, the second one for the voltage, and then we have a serial clock and a serial data pin. And on the ESP32, it is for the serial clock, we have pin number 21, and for the serial data we have pin number 22. And for the buttons here, we have one leg to the ground and another leg to an actual data input. So for me, I have connected it to the pin number 25 to 27, and this works great. I have tried other pins as well, but some you have to be a bit careful. I cannot remember what pin it was, but whenever I pressed the button, it would just reboot ESP32. So if this happens to you, just be aware that some pins are maybe not ideal to use. And that's kind of just the connections for this project. Now let's get into how I actually programmed the different features. For the actual programming of this product, I started out by actually making the timer itself. So I started by predefining 25 minutes for the focus time and 5 minutes for the relax time. But I made sure that you can later on go and edit or adjust the timer to increase the amount of focus time, or maybe you would like a longer break between your sessions. And that's pretty much it for the time itself. The next part was actually making the LED strip so that the blade lights up whenever you focus. And here I use a library called Fast LED, and it works great with this project as well. It's very commonly used for LED strips, and yeah, it just works great. I did want to add some kind of variation for the end user, and so I thought it would be fun to actually implement some different colors to choose from whenever you are studying or relaxing. So I implemented that kind of option for the user to do that. Then for the display, I had some design and some navigations in mind, and let me just quickly go into how I actually made the design for the different menu options. Okay, so for making the designs for the OLED display, you would need some image to actually be displayed on the OLED display other than just text. So for me, for this project, I used something called Photopea. It's basically just a free version of Photoshop. You can use any tool really, as long as you can just export in the right dimensions and as a PNG. For now, we'll just use Photopea. I'll just create a new project, and I choose the width and the height of my OLED display. So for me it's 128 by 64, and then I select a black background, just so that everything I draw in white will become white pixels, and everything black becomes, as you guess, black. So we create our canvas here. It's 128 by 64, and now I can actually start to draw. So what I'll do is that I add a new layer. Let's just call it circle, and then I could draw a circle. I could select the circle here, and then I can press wherever I want it. I press Option and Shift to make it circular and scale from the middle. And now you see it's just black, and that's because our fill here should be white instead. And there we have it. Whoa. Okay, so now that I have made this circle, I can export this. And I just go to File and then to Export Layer. And now sometimes this is selected as standard, and then it says 0 exportable layers, and that's because you can make more complicated exports by naming it -e- to only export the layers that you actually want. But for me, I'll just deselect all of these, have PNG selected, and then I can press export layer. And then it exports my layer here. Okay, so now that we have our image, we want to actually make it so that the ESP can read the image and display it on the OLED display. So I use here a website called Image2CPP, so Image to C++. And what it can do is that it can actually, you can choose your new circle PNG that you just made. Now we have our circle PNG inside of Image2CPP. I think as a standard it is actually already 128 by 64. But if it's not, you just put in your dimensions for your display. And then you can scroll down. And then for me, the black background is black. So just put in whatever you've made your image like. And then you can actually, I think, leave everything to the standard. And then you can generate code, and you can just take everything and just copy it and input it into your Arduino IDE. That's pretty much it. Now that I have the different design options for the different menus, I can go into how I actually made the navigation for this. And as mentioned, I used 3 different buttons. One button for selecting the previous option, one button for selecting the next option, and one for selecting primarily. It really depends on what screen you are currently on. For the most part, it works previous, next, and then select. So yeah, let's say you wanted to change the color of your blade, then it would work a little differently because your left button would actually choose between changing the relax or the focus session color. And then your right button would go through the different options. And I've made a prefix of, I cannot remember, I think it's 7 different options that you can choose from. And it's actually from the most commonly used lightsabers. So it's red, green, blue, yellow, orange, different kinds of options. And the middle button is again select to enter your desired option. The final 3 parts are actually the different menus that I programmed. So I have a menu called the edit timer, and this allows you to edit the duration of the focus time and your relax time. As mentioned, I also have this edit color menu, and as I just mentioned, it allows you to edit the color of both the focus time but also the relax time. The final option is the focus time, and this just starts the timer itself and begins your focus session. Inside of the focus navigation menu, I also allowed you to actually pause the timer if you have some urgent call, or let's say you just needed a break from the timer itself. You can pause it, and if you click the right button, you can actually skip to the next session. So if you're currently inside of a focus session, but you really just need a break right now, you can skip to the next one. And if you're paused and click the left button, you actually go back to the main menu. So that's actually it for the programming. And I think, shouldn't we just get into how I made the design of this product? I now need to figure out what the end product should look like. And I actually started sketching, and I thought, let's say it would look kind of similar to Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. But I quickly found out with the added display, it just added some chunkiness that I didn't really like. So I actually decided to go in a completely different route. Yeah, I ended up with this. And the reason why I'm sketching before I actually dive into the CAD modeling of the lightsaber is because it's much more difficult to just discard a design you have made in something like SolidWorks or Onshape than it is to just scratch a sketch. It's much faster to just make a new sketch, and you can quickly come up with new ideas. It's a little more difficult with CAD modeling, in my opinion at least. But it's also something that we have been taught at the university, that it is actually very important to make drawings that are easy and quickly to redo before determining the final design. With a sketch in mind that I really like, I was actually ready to get started CAD modeling. And I actually started out, and then I got a bit confused or overwhelmed with the difficulty of fitting all of the electronics inside. It's not something I've done before. So for me, it was actually very difficult to just make a design and kind of trying to wing it. without having some kind of dimensions or reference to how big the lightsaber should be. So I actually put the CAD modeling on pause, and then I made a physical mock-up of how I imagined the product to look like, and it's really just a simple mock-up, but it taught me very much about the dimensions, how big should the handle be for this, and where can I put the electronics inside. So it was actually very useful for me when I made the CAD modeling, because making electronics fit inside of a 3D print can, for me at least, be very difficult when you're not that experienced. So this helped me. I have put some I don't know if you can see, markers on it, just with dimensions that I used inside of the CAD modeling software. In my case, I used SolidWorks, but I have previously used something called Onshape, which is free. But yeah, the next step is to actually just make everything fit together inside of SolidWorks and then print it, and hopefully it just fits together. I'll just print everything now, and then I'll show you the final design of the lightsaber. I'm very excited. So this is the final product as it is. It can be plugged with a USB-C in the bottom here. In the future, I will be powering it on batteries, I think, but for now I can just plug it in and then it should work. So you just have your USB-C here, and then you can plug it in. Then the screen lights up. You can use the buttons to edit the color, you can focus or edit the timer. So let's just look at the edit color. Then it actually lights up, and you can use this button to actually change that color. And the display also shows what color it actually is. You can still see some hotspots here, and it's even clearer on the camera, but I think I have an idea to actually implement some kind of reflective mirror film, and I think this could reduce the amount of hotspots. So if we just choose the purple one for this, then we have our edit timer. We select that we want to edit our focus timer. It's set to 1 minute. That's okay for now. And finally, we can just start focusing. I have one little secret, and that is that the closer you get to your actual next session, the fewer and fewer LEDs will light up. I can just pause it and then skip to the next session. Then it lights up in our relax color, and it does the same by lighting up fewer and fewer LEDs. And that's it. I'm actually really excited to get to use this for my next Pomodoro session. Yeah, that's it. So what I'm very interested in is actually, I'm just gonna unplug it. What I'm very interested in is actually to get some kind of feedback on this project, because I want to hear what you think about this project or this product. Is it something that you could actually see yourself using? And if you had to add some kind of feature to this, what would it be? I have some suggestions myself, but I'm very interested to hear from you guys. First of all, we have this cover, and I'm just keeping it on because inside I have all the electronics. And if I was better at electronics, I would probably have just made a PCB and then mounted all the electronics onto that. I'm not, but for that reason, everything is done a little bit of soldering for the actual LED strip and for the buttons here, because you could not put a jumper wire on that. But for everything else, it's actually using jumper wires, and that has not been a pleasant journey with those. I don't know if this is why they're called jumper wires, but they kept jumping off the OLED screen also the buttons and even the ESP32. So for future projects, if I'm not using a PCB, I would probably just solder everything onto it. Another thing I thought that could be kind of cool to add to this project or to this product is that whenever you change to either relax or focus session, you could have some kind of speaker that's made some kind of sound. As I mentioned earlier in this video, the ESP32 does have a Wi-Fi module. So I thought for a future project, it could be cool to actually connect this to some kind of server or maybe a broker that connects to your phone. So you can actually maybe gather some data to show how much have I studied this week, today, this month, maybe even this year. And then you can keep track of how well you are or how good you have been studying, or for how long at least. Could still be scrolling on YouTube or Instagram. But yeah, I would really like to hear your input on what improvements could you, or what features could you add to this? Also improvements. I think maybe it could be cool if you had like a rounded top. What about the visuals here? Please let me know. Yeah, finally I have multiple different ideas in mind for future projects, but I think the next one, let me just give me a second here. For my next project, I think it will include this RC car. It doesn't work at the moment, and I'm not sure if it's just because it needs new batteries or if I'm actually not sure. I got it for free. It's an old RC car. I would try to make it drive on its own. So I would probably introduce some kind of sensor to look for obstacles. I think that will be very cool. So if you're interested in mobile robots and also RC cars, I think you should stay tuned. And until then, I'll see you guys.